Ubisoft, the studio behind the game that nobody asked for, the game that nobody talks about, and the game that nobody plays, has been put in charge of a Star Wars game. And considering the way they handled the last franchise I love, believe me when I say that going into this game, I was worried. But after finishing the game, I can confidently say that things are complicated. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. In today's video, I'm going to be breaking down characters, exploration, gameplay, and story to see how Star Wars Outlaws fares to the rest of Ubisoft's recent lineup of games. And while doing so, we're going to be investigating an energy reading that, for those that have been keeping up with my story, might just be our ticket out of here. Let us gear up, head out. Look, let's start with Outlaws Opening. Usually I would start these videos by breaking down what a game does right and what a game does wrong, and balance out my thoughts on the two. Usually you can look past a game's mistakes when an opening, for the most part, is pretty solid. But Outlaws has a fascinating problem that I've never experienced before, in the sense that the good and the bad aren't separate things. Confusing, I know, but allow me to set the scene and talk about what the opening does really well, and I'll show you what I mean. Outlaws opens by establishing 3 of the 4 criminal factions that you can interact with within the game, and it does a really good job at characterizing what each faction is all about. The Pike Syndicate are loud and headstrong in their ways, calling out the slightest of slants against them. The Hutt Cartel are overconfident and arrogant, likely stemming from their overabundance of power throughout the galaxy. Crimson Dawn are more observant, waiting for the correct moment to speak plainly. And once you've met the Ashiga clan, you realize that their lack of involvement in the opening scene is actually a fantastic development for their faction as well, as their clan is an insect race whose only real motivation is self-preservation and expansion, developing a distaste for collaboration with the other criminal families, resulting in their absence at the gathering of all the criminal guilds. Not only does the opening develop a sort of expectation for the syndicates that you'll be interacting with throughout the game, but also introduces the main antagonist, Slero. Slero's introduction is magnificent and depicts an all-consuming organization that wishes to tear down the existing syndicates, not to purify the galaxy, but to spread its own wings of influence throughout the Outer Rim. Aura is a really hard thing to cultivate and write into a character, but Slero has it in droves after a mere 2 minutes of screen time. He perpetuates traits of all 4 of the crime families in a way that works best to benefit his character, both in scene and in the way he is written. Like the Pikes, he is eager to speak up on the slights of others towards him.
My brother was heir to the family fortune. He's gone now. You remind me of him. He always came first. Even at dinner. If he'd finished his meal, he'd just take my plate. All I could do was watch him chew. Go hungry.
Like the Hutt, he radiates confidence in a calling of the minds, but permeates arrogance in not seeing those minds as equals. Much like the Crimson Dawn, he is okay with sitting quietly as his enemies argue and complain, leaving him ample time to rebuke and affirm his actions.
I didn't come all this way to listen to lies, while your Zerek Besharats skim off our spice lanes.
And much like the Ashiga clan, allows his absence in a room to illustrate his disdain, both in him arriving late to the meeting and being ever distant in allowing his men to gun down potential collaborators that he sees no benefit in.
What is the point of this?
If Zerek Besh wants partners, forget it. Been done, doesn't work.
Partners? Aren't you listening? I'm starving. It's time to eat.
Slero rules over the Zerek Besh crime syndicate, and it is here to consume all. Sliero's introduction at the start of the game not only makes for a strong start to our story, but makes for a fantastic juxtaposition when introducing the main character, Kay Vess. Kay Vess is nothing like Sliero, and the jarring transition from the culling of the criminal underworld to the morning routine of a down-on-her-luck hireling is pretty cool. Kay's introduction gets right to the point and depicts her as a driven soul getting ready for her next job, even though she has nothing lined up. She has experienced the hustle of the criminal life and knows that whoever is first in is first served. Her first interaction with another character outside of her pet Nyx is also really good at showing us what Kay is like as a character. She is quick to gauge a person's critiques before they've even spoken. She is quick to brush off the help of other people who cannot be relied upon, and despite being at a low point, gets back on the horse, confident that things will turn around through her hard work. This is a flawed, but very pleasant character to be around and play as. Her flaws aren't things that bother a player. Her flaws make for a character that you can root for. Her confidence and cocky attitude don't stem from a disdain for others, but an enjoyment in taking care of herself. Her negative traits elevate her own character and make her more interesting, in my opinion. She is a less suave Han Solo type, and in a game called Star Wars Outlaws, that makes for a good starting point for our character. The game's opening has you play two jobs, one that goes bad and a second that goes even worse. And it's here that things start to turn sour. Let's head back to what I said at the start of this video. Everything that is good and everything that is bad are not separate things. What I mean is that it feels like there are two separate teams making this game. Two teams of writers, two teams of designers, and two teams made up of angels and absolute morons. Because how is it that both Sliero and Kay bounce between being completely different characters every time I see them? The first time you meet Sliero, he is a man of cunning intelligence who intimidates through speeches and clear, concise planning. The second time you meet Sliero, he is a bumbling idiot who somehow gets locked in a room by the hostage that he was holding in the same fucking room. But don't worry guys, I'm sure Sliero can win back his cool aura and mastermind status in the 3 times he's gonna show up for the rest of the game where he's a whiny, pissy man baby. And Kay. Do not get me started on Kay. I hope you didn't like confident, cocky, resourceful Kay, because she has a dentist appointment every few hours where the developers rip out her teeth every time she says something cool and drugs her up to the point that she's tripping so hard it's over her own fucking feet. Because why the fuck? For half of this game is Kay a stone cold gun for hire with an attitude for no bullshit, and for the other half, she's a timid, frail, anxious dipshit. Do you know how hard it is to feel like a badass outlaw when your character sounds like this?
I'm Kay, and you're gonna let me through.
You're not on the list.
Oh, my friend Preben put me on the list.
I think I need to be clearer here because I understand if you are not feeling what I'm feeling. Kay half the time when delivering dialogue always says the right thing on paper. Like, literally. When writing the things you want her to say, she sounds pretty cool. But half the time, her delivery makes her feel like she isn't confident in what she's saying. It's like when a friend tells a really funny joke, but tells it like he's nervous. Dialogue that is written to sound confident isn't going to be confident if the character delivering it doesn't have a backbone. Which brings up another problem I have. The way that characters react to the things that Kay says. Half the time when Kay's delivery feels unsure, characters take her seriously.
I don't know you.
What? You never make new friends?
I have enough friends.
Yeah, but you don't have to pay me to hang out with you.
But when her line delivery is confident and feels like a character that you'd want to play as, characters belittle her.
In or out. That's all you get.
Tell your client Kay Vess is in.
Cute. Desperate, but cute.
And it's even worse when Kay's character does speak like a gun for hire, gets the smallest amount of pushback, and completely folds.
The Pikes are muscling in on Jabba's creature smuggling business, stealing his buyers in the core worlds. Find out who they're selling to, then take out their factory farm.
Half up front or no dice?
You'll get paid when you deliver.
That works too.
Wait, hold on. Is Kay written to be a timid underdog pretending to be a badass? Oh god, that's exactly what's gone wrong here. You aren't playing as a badass gun for hire. You aren't playing the experienced smuggler. You're playing as a character bumbling her way through the criminal underworld. Oh god damn it. In a universe of Boba Fett's, Cad Bane's, and Han Solo's, you're playing a character with little experience, who has years of experience, who hasn't been in the game for long, who's been in the game for the last 10 years, that doesn't know what they're doing, unless they happen to know what they're doing, who is role-playing the role that she's been playing her entire life. You're playing a poser in a game where half the time she's written to have been raised to be the best. Confused? Good! Now you can understand where I'm coming from. Normally I can pin down what makes an opening good and bad. Normally I can point out what I like and dislike about a character. But the opening is so inconsistent in the way the characters act that if I broke down Cool K, half of you would call bullshit. And if I broke down Weakling K, the rest of you would be baffled. And this is not, let me be clear, this is not the voice actor's fault, as K is consistently seen throughout the game playing the role of a badass. And she's really, really cool.
Tislak Shar. I found a little hollow of you talking to Thornton. You're planning to take down Gorak.
What? Who are you? How did you find me?
I guess I'm pretty good at sniffing out traitors.
No, you do not understand. He does not deserve the power of the Pikes. He could be pulling double, triple the profit, but he does not listen to reason.
He doesn't listen to reason? Or he wouldn't pay for your trips to that casino cruiser?
It was a business opportunity.
Uh-huh. You can tell me about it on the way back to Miragana. I'm finishing the job I was hired for. So, start walking.
There is nothing wrong with writing a character to be weak and vulnerable. A lot of games write characters to be new to their environment and develop into a more confident self as the story develops. But Kay doesn't really have that kind of development through line. She just consistently bounces between being metal as fuck and being a frail baby. Some would call that nuanced writing, but I call it I don't want to play as this character. You've written a world full of hundreds of criminals, gangsters, mob bosses, and bounty hunters, and you play as the most boring of them. Your character gets outshined by the robot in the trench coat, and he isn't even in the fucking game! Or at least not in the way that you'd all hoped he would be. But we will discuss him and Kay's fault later on in the story segment of this video. What about the rest of the opening? Fact is, while I did enjoy playing the opening for the most part, the constant beatdown on Kay and the boring moments that precede it make for a really underwhelming start for Kay's story. Her first minute of screen time is the best that you're going to get, and it sucks. On your first mission, you are scripted to get caught, leading to a new low for Kay, forcing her into doing a heist where she gets caught, leading to a new low for Kay, only to escape and be told that the whole story of Star Wars Outlaws is how you're gonna do the same heist again that you just did in the opening of the game, only with a new crew. Only the game's gonna tell you that you have to go around the whole Outer Rim and recruit those characters yourself to do the same heist again. God, leave it up to Ubisoft to make their Star Wars game a glorified fetch quest that ends with recycled content. The first opening mission is super inconsistent in displaying Kay's experience in the underworld, and if I'm being honest, really is just lazy. You need to get into a room to steal a thing from a guy. Keep it simple. In a single subtle conversation with the bartender, you are able to deduce the thing's location, that the guy isn't in the room with the thing, and also collect intel on the guard currently blocking your entrance to the room with the thing. You're told that he has a very expensive T-85 speeder and won't shut up about the fact that he likes easy money. In a smart game, you'd be able to walk outside to where the speeder is parked, locate and identify the brand new T-85 speeder, mess around with the accelerator so that it revs like crazy, run back into the bar yelling within earshot of the guard that some kids are messing with a T-85 speeder. The guard would run outside, see that his speeder is going ballistic, and you'd have all the time in the world to sneak by and continue in your mission. Not only would the game be teaching you that intel collection is important, but through initiative, you can apply that intel wherever you see fit. Instead, the game has you walk up to the guard, tell him that you want to go into the room that is off limits. Then when he tells you that there's no way of you getting past him, you just flat out ask him if he owns a specific model of speeder and that some kids are stealing it.
I'm Kay, and you're gonna let me through.
You're not on the list.
Oh, my friend Preben put me on the list.
Preben should have paid more.
Hey, you know anybody who owns a T-85?
Yeah, that's my ride.
Nice speeder. Some scrap rats are outside trying to jack it.
What?
And what's worse is that he just falls for it. Having your character tell the guard you want to sneak by alone is stupid. Having you follow that up with a lie delivered this unconvincingly is just laughable. This is what I mean by Kay being super inconsistent. She's able to manipulate a bartender cleverly into drip feeding her intel, which is just super cool. I love what she says when she closes this conversation.
Not gonna get you a drink? Nah, think I got what I needed. Thanks.
But then the game just offers you no interesting way to apply that intel. Instead of intel opening up a fun and interactive way of distracting the guard, you press E on a bartender, press E on a guard, and just click on whatever option is highlighted. Also, what a terrible selection of choices. Even if the player has enough credits, why would you bribe and lose money when just lying to him without having to do any work for it works all the same? These aren't choices, they're just glorified continue the story buttons. And these sort of lazy creative decisions are littered throughout the game. When you get betrayed by your team who turn out to be rebels during the first heist, you come to face with Slero. The first two real characters that you know are now face to face. Both are cunning, manipulative, and resourceful in very distinct and unique ways. This interaction right here is what's going to push the plot forward. After I've explained both of these characters to you, how do you think this scenario goes? A. Slero, fascinated by Kay's ability to break into his vault, offers to hire her to hunt down a crew made up of his enemies and requests that you lead them into a trap by taking them on a fake heist. B. Quick with her words, Kay makes a deal with Slero to hunt down the rebels who betrayed her, allowing herself to get revenge whilst also offering Slero something that will prevent him from killing you. Or C. Kay's pitbull bites Slero on the face and she manages to escape one of the most powerful men in the entire galaxy. A offers up a story that will develop Kay's only works alone trait and could end with you making the heist legit whilst maintaining communication with Slero that it's still fake. B offers a story of a trickster bounty hunter as Kay through her journey gets to have an overarching story on if she wants to work for evil, and C sets you up on having a bounty on your head so huge that you need to buy your freedom by doing a heist on the man that put the bounty on you in order to pay the man who you stole from in the heist to remove the What? Can you guess which choice they went with? Ubisoft, my man, king, champ. You wrote these characters to be cunning. You put them in a room together. You can make an awesome setup. You are literally in control here. Are you an idiot? Now look, that's not to say that the game's main story is all shit. Outlaw's story is full of colorful characters and does lead to some incredible adventures where you can lose yourself. But this is a terrible start. I'll dive deeper into the rest of the main story later on, but we have a huge galaxy to explore here. Outside of the main questline, what else does Outlaws have to offer? A lot, actually. And while a lot may seem good on paper, you'd be wrong. Exploration is always really fun to talk about in videos. It's one thing to discuss exploration in games like Starfield, Avatar, and Dragon's Dogma, but this is Star Wars we're talking about. Hundreds of named planets, established cultures, hundreds of alien races. So many things to see and do within the world of Star Wars. So let's get started with the planets that the game takes place on. Outside of Cantonica, where a large portion of the opening takes place, we have 4 distinct planets: a watery forest planet, a snow planet, and 2 arid desert planets. I briefly want to talk about the selection of planets first off, because for me, the roster of planets is super underwhelming. We have a watery forest planet. Is it Kashyyyk, the planet of the Wookiees? Naboo? Oh, what if it's Scarif from Rogue One? But nope, it's Akiva, whose first on-screen appearance is in Star Wars Outlaws. Okay. Ooh, a snow planet. Is it Hoth? Wait, what if it's Illume? Illume was once a planet where the Jedi would collect their kyber crystals as Padawans, and at this point in time, the planet hasn't been transformed into this Star Destroyer battle station. But nope, it's Kijimi, a planet that appears for 5 minutes in the worst Star Wars movie. But it's kind of okay. I mean, at least we get to flesh out the planet and its people. Now let's get this out of the way. One of the desert planets is Tatooine, because of course, we cannot escape Tatooine. But if they're going to do 2 desert planets in the same game, it has to be an iconic planet as well, right? Exegol could work, but I doubt they'd want to do an outlaw story on a planet that's so entangled with the plot of the Jedi. Oh! What if it's Mandalore? Wait, no, I'm an idiot. It has to be Geonosis. There is a commando droid on the cover. The destroyed droid factories on the planet must play a role on how Kay found ND5. Or maybe he'll need a special part from the destroyed factories in the story. But nope, it's actually Toshara, a completely original location written for Star Wars Outlaws. Yes, all the planets suck. Okay, but if the planets for the most part are unexplored on screen outside of Tatooine, they must be full of plenty of things to do and explore with no restrictions in regard of canon, right? Haha! Oh, you're serious? Planetary exploration isn't real. It is a lie, like it has been in every single space game till the end of time. There is no situation where you go out and explore the open world on each planet and find something interesting to do. You'll be sent out into the void of 8K textures, and there's just nothing out there worth discovering that doesn't originate from a functioning side quest. Actually, no. There are random encounters where you'll have people sending out distress signals requesting your aid. Hey, there's one right now.
They're coming!
I just killed all the bad guys, so I wonder what I'll get for answering the call.
Did you need something?
An outsider's opinion. My daughter wants to work in Mirogana, but I think we should steer clear of the Empire.
The city is more than the Empire. You just don't want me to go.
Wait one more season. Once the Imperials leave, then we can talk.
Can you believe this? What would you do?
Oh, you want my opinion? I should have let you die. Here's another random encounter on Kijimi where I save a slave worker by buying their freedom. Oh, they didn't say thank you. Maybe they must be leading me to their house so that they can... Huh. So, stay tuned for the next video, titled, Why the People of Kijimi Deserve So Much Worse. There's just nothing in the world worth interacting with outside of the side quests, and even when you think you found something on your own, you are wrong. Whilst on Akiva, I bumped into a man saying he was looking for a combat droid that he could employ on the cheap to be a guard, the kind that don't mind getting their little chrome fingies dirty. This isn't a side quest, but it is lodged as intel in your data log. Intel are like mini quests with smaller rewards that require players' initiative to complete. When you obtain one intel, you'll likely need to look around to find what links up with that first piece of intel in order to get a quest. And wouldn't you know it, in the same bar, I found an old combat droid who hates his current job and longs for an employer who will offer him opportunities to commit acts of violence in a bodyguard situation. And he even says he'll work for free. Through investigating this man's request, I was able to find 2 pieces of intel and link them together through my own investigation and initiative. That sounds pretty cool, right? No, because I lied. These 2 pieces of intel tell are completely unrelated to one another and have no connection in any way, shape, or form. I walk up to a man and he says he wants a battle droid to be a guard for the cheap who isn't afraid of violence. I then bump into a battle droid who wants to be a guard for free as long as he is allowed to commit acts of violence. And these two instances are not part of the same intel quest. Instead, you just go buy the guy a droid from a droid dealer, and for the droid, you just hand him to another droid dealer and offer him some protection. The objective location for both of these intel quests are 3 meters apart from each other. Okay, come on, there has to be at least one interesting intel quest in this game, okay? Oh, here we go. You walk up to this guy who clearly owns a shop and he refuses to sell you anything unless you have a passphrase. He is a black market dealer, which means he's going to sell better and stronger items and materials. So you sneak around the market hoping you find a clue until you find a girl talking about a secret phrase. I found it. Great. So I go back to the guy, tell him the phrase, he offers you to sell stuff. I look into the shop and he is selling the same shit as every other vendor. You know what? No. I'm sorry, but I'm not doing this anymore. If you've subscribed to me in the last year, thank you. I love you. I owe you everything that I have. Become a member today, but I cannot do this. You watch my videos because I am able to give even the most dogshit games the benefit of the doubt. Starfield was kind of arse, but I did love the city exploration. Avatar was kind of a letdown, but man, this game looks gorgeous, and I've learnt so much about the world of Pandora and the Na'vi people. Dragon's Dogma 2's story is a complete letdown, but man, killing monsters was a blast. I love giving games a balanced perspective. I enjoy offering up praise for a game even when it lets me down. It's my bread and butter. Yummy, yummy. But Star Wars Outlaws might be the worst game I have ever played outside of The Isle. But that's foreshadowing for another day. Star Wars Outlaws is bad. No, not just bad, criminally bad. And speaking of criminals, the faction quest lines and the rep system that is attached to it sucks. You have 4 factions, and outside of characterizing them with grumpy, cocky, sneaky, and bug, they are the same fucking thing. The quests are the same, the rewards are the same, and the moral codes for all of them are the same. When I talked about Cyberpunk's exploration, I talked about like 4 side quests individually because of how meticulous and nuanced they were. In Avatar, I talked about how side quests explore the cultures of the Na'vi. In Dragon's Dogma, I talked about how quests were designed to aid you in exploring the map. In Starfield, I talked about how side quests expand on the themes of each planet that they're based on. In Star Wars Outlaws, the exploration and side quests are there to waste your fucking time. New side quest, sneak into a place and pick up a thing. Wow, my speeder has a boost button now. New side quest, sneak into a place and pick up a thing. Wow, my rep went up with a faction. New side quest, sneak up into a place and pick up a thing. Wow, the game's given me a choice that matters and changes the game. I mean, sure, this is repetitive, but it doesn't seem that bad. Speeder upgrades are completely pointless considering there is nothing to explore or discover in the open world. Gaining reputation with factions means nothing because all the benefits to maxing out your rep are shit. If you max out rep, you get discounts on items used for upgrades that are pointless and have no use. There's no point in upgrading a speeder that goes nowhere. No point in upgrading a ship that's an ugly rectangle that's already overpowered. And the weapon upgrades mean nothing, as all the weapons functionality upgrades are locked to the campaign, and they scale up the power of the weapon as you go. So even if you bought parts to upgrade your blaster, 2 missions later, and it's all redundant. Maxing out your rep does get you a cute little outfit. It's a shame that you're gonna progress the main questline and be given the most broken statted outfit in the game. Oh, but Zenny, whichever faction you max out with the highest rep will end up showing up in the final mission of the game. I'm not kidding. If you do a handful of quests for one faction, they will be willing to go to war with the Empire to save your life. It's explained that the reason they help you is to get a particular data pod from you, but then you don't give the data pod to them, you hand it to someone else, and miraculously, your rep does not go down despite betraying the people that just went to war for you. Okay, but hold on, what about the choices I spoke about before? What do you get depending on what choices you pick? Oh, it just adjusts your rep level. Cool! Even if you ignore the rep system and acknowledge that it sucks, what's the point of any other reward? You get paid 1,000 credits, but there's nothing to spend it on. I'm not joking when I say there is only one thing worth spending credits on, and it's buying dinner for your dog so you can unlock new perks that won't even work when you enable them because the game's broken. Thanks for putting your entire budget into the food eating quick time event, Ubisoft. Would have been nice if you put some of that money into the quest lines. I sold a device to the Empire. Can you go get it back for me? Oh, the Huts have a data chip. Can you go steal it for me? It's the same fucking quest over and over again. The side quests, objectives, and story beats are miserable. But at least we have gameplay, right? At least we still have gameplay, right?
What do you think you're doing?
Well, now that you've confirmed my theory, I'm leaving! For the last 2 years, I've been picking up an energy reading from this exact location. It's a gateway, in and out of the simulation. I was only able to put 2 and 2 together after an energy reading correlated with a visit from you.
And if I do recall correctly, in our first meeting, I told you to wait!
I'm not one of your dreadnoughts! I'm not a tin soldier that you can bark orders at!
My master still wishes to speak with you within the safe confines of this reality.
Then where is he? Where is he? It's been months since you made contact with me, and I am still in the dark. I'm done waiting.
You are just as arrogant as you were back then. Blind to the bigger picture. Only ever looking out for yourself. General Acheron is under the impression that you are no longer him, just a husk without its core. But he is a fool to not see what you are becoming.
Who I'm becoming? Who I'm becoming? I don't even know who I am right now! I don't even know who you are!
You are an insect! A traitor! A murderer! Absent memories be damned! I forbid you from forgetting.
I'm leaving. I can either go through the gateway or go through you.
The General was wrong for trying to keep you alive. To the death it is then.
A lot of games can get away with a poor story or a boring world if the game at the very least is fun to play. And with the colossal sized playground of Star Wars, you'd think that Outlaws would be able to nail this. You'd also have to be a complete idiot to think that Ubisoft would be able to flesh out the concept of a cool person with a gun without bloating the gameplay loot with something as boring as sneak. And more sneak. And climb, and more climb, and vents, and more vents, and whoa, hell yeah! And sneak, and more sneak, and more. Star Wars Outlaws doesn't want to be a crisp 10 to 12 hours of the most fun you've ever had with Star Wars. It wants to be the game that you'll be playing for the next 2 months until Assassin's Creed Shadow comes out. Most likely because they want people to stay subscribed to Ubisoft Plus long enough between games so that you'll never have to cancel that tasty monthly subscription. Star Wars Outlaws is a game about never being seen, where the fun that you want to have is a punishment for being seen. The game forces you down the path of stealth so much that when the game does open up and offers you the choice of stealth or combat, most players are always going to want to blow shit up and play out the fantasy of a gunslinger outgunning the criminal underworld. And the problem that Outlaws has is a big one. It genuinely believes that its stealth is just as fun as its combat. Ubisoft doesn't think that you're bored when executing stealth tactics. It really thinks that waiting, sitting still, and mindlessly clicking on a guy to let your bulldog have all the fun makes for engaging gameplay. If you were to take every opportunity to shoot your way out of a situation, you are in for a bad time. The game isn't designed for you to be rewarded for clever combat tactics. It's designed to punish you for conducting combat when what you should have done is sat still. Sometimes the game gets so frustrated with the player's ambition to have fun that some levels will just straight up restrict your ability to pull out your blaster, despite your blaster having stealth mechanics built into it. Usually, the game allows you to stun or attack enemies that have spotted you before they fire on you or alert the surrounding forces. But levels where your blaster is disabled also disables your ability to punch people who haven't alerted the guards yet, leaving you in an awkward situation of being spotted and being forced to awkwardly wait for the 2 seconds it takes for the enemy to call out for help. Instead of the game allowing you to have your blaster and punishing you for accidentally firing it, the game would rather disable your ability to mess up in order to punish you even harder when you do mess up from the restrictions that the game has thrust upon you. And it's not like stealth has the privilege of freedom. The game wants you to think you have the freedom of choice on how to conduct stealth, but when your choices for a stealth mission are, do you want to sneak through the front door and deal with 20 stormtroopers that you're not allowed to shoot, or do you want to enter the side door that's closer and has no guards? What do you think the player is going to pick? I mean, sure, you might want to do the harder entrance for the sake of the challenge, but keep in mind the game at this point has pissed off the player so much that stealth isn't an opportunity to show off one's skill. It's an opportunity to waste your time. You can have the choice of the hard way and the easy way, but you can't just expect a player to want to go the harder route without some kind of incentive. And we've already established that the materials and credits mean nothing, so what's the point of dragging out the boredom? And even if you don't care about rewards and you want the challenge, let's not pretend that the stealth in this game is hard. You need to sit still and wait for a guard to walk down a hall. You need to send out your pug to distract an enemy so you can walk right past them. You need to shoot 3 guys with a stun blast, but your stun blaster has a 30-second cooldown. Looks like more waiting to me. And even if you do everything perfectly, there is still a chance that the game will just bug out and result in you getting caught. If you send out your poodle to attack an enemy, and yes, his attack is still considered stealth, there is still a chance that the game is going to force your hand into doing something that you don't want to do. Here's a clip of me trying to be stealthy. My idea is to have my Labrador attack guy 1, drawing the attention of the second guy so that I can take him out, and then take out the first guy while he is still disoriented by my bull mastiff. It is such a simple concept, a straightforward plan, and despite how 1 + 1 = 2 it is, the game still manages to screw it up. When using your bulldog to attack or disorient an enemy, the game's always going to assume you've done so that you can take them out yourself, which means despite running at a different guy facing a completely different direction, if you press the melee button, it will auto-lock onto the enemy being disoriented spotted by the Beagle, which results in either you failing the mission or getting thrown into a combat situation that you didn't want. The game forces your hand into doing stealth, unless you come up with a fun way of conducting stealth, in which case the game's decided that your life is forfeit. So not only is stealth boring, tedious, and unrewarding, the game's also decided that it doesn't work. The combat feels pretty fun to start with, but without any kind of variety in movement, level design that complements combat, and weapons, it just gets boring really fast. I don't really care to discuss combat that much because there really isn't much to it. Shoot at the bad guys until they die. No boss fights where you aren't just dodging on repeat for 5 minutes. And oh, Jesus Christ, I completely forgot about space combat. Okay, so the space combat is good, but easy. And if you don't believe me, here is me sitting completely still whilst 10 TIE fighters are trying to kill me, along with a Star Destroyer.
Patience, okay. For the message to reach the rebels, you must destroy it.
I hear you.
This goes on for 2 minutes, and I still don't die. And a brief chat about level design? Star Wars Outlaws suffers from yellow paint syndrome, and will texture every crate, every ledge, and every swingable pole with yellow because the game thinks that you're an idiot. I've never discussed this before in a video, but I understand why developers do this. During playtests, the developers always find players struggling to identify where to go or what to climb in order to progress. Naturally, you'd think that the developers need to draw more attention to the path that they want the player to take. And I gotta say, yellow paint is the joke answer to the question of how do we make our level design translate to gamers? It's literally just slapping a band-aid on a problem with no creative finesse whatsoever. If you want a player to climb, light the climbable areas differently and more distinctly to the rest of the scene. If you distinctly need a player to climb a wall, make players associate climbability with a texture instead of a color. If it's a metal environment, make it metal mesh fencing. If it's a forest environment, make it vines. If it's the desert, make it a dry, crackled wall. If it's snow, make it extruding brick where the snow has melted. Yellow paint is the lazy man's all-purpose glue. It's ugly and it's everywhere throughout the entire run of Outlaws. To the point that the game teaches you to only look for yellow. It's trained you into not exploring alternatives because yellow is the gateway drug. Here's me confused as to why I can't jump onto this metal ledge. It took me 4 attempts to figure out what was going wrong here because the game's so arse with its handling that I honestly just thought the game was bugging out. Turns out that this is one of the few instances where you're not supposed to look for yellow, and this generic rock surface is actually climbable. Also, super small tangent on something that doesn't really matter, but why is Kay just able to knock people out with a single punch despite having the muscle tone of a chapstick? You can just walk up to a stormtrooper, punch them in the helmet, and what? This is such a simple fix and it's driving me insane. Let her hit people with the butt of her gun. Why can she just knock people out like this? It's so fucking lazy. Star Wars Outlaws is just boring, and when it isn't, it's only a matter of time. The combat only feels fun because the game restricts you from doing it too often. And even if you force the game into letting you shoot people, it's gonna punish you with bad rep with factions, which only drags out your ability to buy items that are completely useless. Speeder combat is a great example of how mundane the combat is. If you get attacked by a gang on speeders, you cannot shoot them. Instead, you have to wait for them to either shoot at you first or get close enough so that your ability bar starts to charge so that you can press X, click on the bad guys, and the game shoots at them for you. What's even worse is the game doesn't even let you watch. It'll auto-lock the camera back to the forward position where the enemies aren't visible. If you want to shoot at the bad guys on the speeders, you need to stop your speeder, get off the speeder, and then you can shoot the bad guys. Thank Thanks, Ubisoft! The gameplay is a complete disaster, and I'm not going to tell you that there aren't moments where this stuff works, but with so many variables in how things can go wrong, and not enough variables in your ability to have fun, the game just feels like a chore. And I apologize if this gameplay section has been boring enough to put you to sleep, but don't worry, I have something that might wake you up. Lilith. Your name. What the hell is happening? Is Lilith. The moment you've all been waiting for is finally here. The story. Is it good? Is it bad? Well, let's discuss it. After Kay's interaction with Slero, she steals his one-of-a-kind ship and manages to jump to hyperspace to a nearby system and crash lands. And it's after this crash that the game really struggles to lift off. But you know what's lifting off well? Okay, I'm really bad at segues. Ad! Are you tired of having too much disposable income? Do my videos fill a void in your soul that makes you forget that your uni papers are due in 3 hours? Do my animations tickle that part of your brain that sounds like... Well then, I've got great news! This is a robbery! If you're interested in showing your support for the channel, please consider grabbing something from the merch store. We've got posters, hoodies, shirts, phone cases, mugs, and a few extra bits and pieces here and there. You guys seem to love Lilith here on the channel, so I thought, why not give her a poster? This looks pretty good, right? I also have YouTube membership and a Patreon. All funds raised end up going towards editing software, concept artists, voice actors, and so much more. This channel is made possible by viewers like you, and your support is appreciated. Tashara is where our story begins, and it's a really rocky start. Tashara is meant to be the establishing area for the stakes of the game, and with its story being very self-contained to the planet, a lot of the story beats that cannot carry on throughout the game get rushed here. When you crash, an alien called Waka tries to kill you, but then some other people try to kill you, and then suddenly you and Waka are just all good. He's also gonna fix your ship, and he isn't really worried about payment despite on how much you insist, and damn! I was really surprised when he turned on me later and wanted my ship. Who could have seen that coming? It's when Waka finally turns on you that the real stakes of the game start to develop. You have a death mark on you, and a bounty hunter is going to kill you if you don't clear it. Enter Jalen, a mysterious man who is very mysterious, who offers you a chance to clear your death mark if you do a heist for him. The same heist that you already did. He wants you to break into Slero's vault again and steal over 150 million credits worth of unmarked Beskar ingots. Now this is where things get very confusing, and I don't think the writers really thought out the implications of the death mark. The idea at first is that with her cut of the credits, she can buy her freedom, which is exactly why she says yes, and is exactly how Jalen words it.
You're already dead, okay? Slero runs the most lethal syndicate I've ever seen, and he wants you gone. You want to live? Push back. Rob his fortune, buy your freedom. What do you think?
I'm in.
But she doesn't have a distributed bounty that she can pay to have removed. She has a death mark, which means it's a closed contract with Slero and a select bounty hunter, which means she would have to pay off Slero to drop the death mark. And why would Slero accept payment from the person that robbed the credits off him? So right off the bat, Kay is an idiot and Jalen is lying to you. You cannot buy your freedom, no matter how many credits you have. It's clear that the game later notices this mistake, as it's rewritten to be that she isn't buying her freedom, just that she will have enough money to be on the run her entire life with enough with enough credits to fund a secluded life, which is not why she accepted the job. And even when Kay randomly acknowledges she won't be able to do the thing that she is setting out to do, she's still completely cool with it. Jalen is lying to you, and you know he's lying to you, but Kay is too stupid to realize it, which makes for a very unpleasant gaming experience. You play as an idiot, and the game didn't mean for that to happen. Jalen hires you for the job considering you were able to break in the first time, which is a really stupid criteria considering he shows you his plan to get in, which means he could have handed these plans to anyone and they would have been able to get in. So why is he hiring the one person who literally failed to conduct the same heist on an unprepared Slero to now do the same job on a highly alert prepared Slero? Kay Vess is not the person for this job, and it is so obvious. Because a video game needs to happen, Jalen entrusts you to gather up everyone that will be needed in order to complete the heist. An explosive expert, a weapons guy, and a droid smith. The explosives expert is located on Kijimi, and this is the best the game's ever going to get. Kijimi is the only planet that doesn't offer an open world, and in doing so, tries to squeeze the same amount of content the other planets offer into a confined city. And it's because of this that Kijimi doesn't suffer from being spread too thin content-wise. You're here to hire Ankh, and her character, while at first is pretty shallow, she has some really good development as a crew member on your ship. On Tatooine, your pet Nix gets taken. With Kay being manic about if Nix is okay, ND5, the droid from the poster, tries to rationalize how this really isn't worth it, and that whoever has Nix isn't worth messing with. And with Kay not being able to see reason, ND5 sees that he's inexperienced in the realm of human emotions and puts Ankh on the comms. And it's awesome how fast Ankh is able to calm Kay down.
Extremely dangerous, Kay.
I said I don't care. Nix is family. You wouldn't get it.
I see.
I like Ankh. She doesn't really get that much screen time, and while trying to recruit her, she isn't really present for any of the questline, as you're more trying to clear her debt with the Crimson Dawn rather than going there to meet her. Next, you need a weapons guy that isn't going to end up being part of the crew as he dies because he's a fucking idiot, and he's only used to get you onto Tatooine so you can soy jack at Jabba the Hutt. You know what? I'm sorry. We're not doing this. The whole crew fucking sucks, and gathering them means nothing. And yes, that includes Ankh. They barely have anything to do with the questlines that you do on the planet in order to unlock them. And when you do unlock them, they become part of the crew for the heist mission, but you'll barely even see them. They will pop up on the comms every so often and sit on your ship, but outside of that, you never see them during gameplay and you never interact with them. Ankh, the weapons guy, the droid smith, you're not going to interact with any of these people outside of them being on the comms and a small gathering before the final quest, which is just really underwhelming. There is only one character that you all care about. I've been basically silent about him until now because he is everything wrong with this game, and that is ND5. ND5 is the biggest scam I have ever seen in a video game. He's on the cover for the game. He's seen on the posters with Kay. He's in the marketing. He is present for a mission in one of the gameplay trailers. He is a massive part of this game's marketing and identity. He is the coolest thing everything about this game, and he isn't even in it. When I see this poster, I assume he is the second protagonist. When I see him in the gameplay trailer that they showed off, he looks like he is your main companion. When characters talk in the marketing, it seems like this droid cares for Kay like family. But ND5 is a lie. He is a glorified babysitter whose full-time job is calling you a loser with small hints of kindness sprinkled out in the game, as the game has no idea what order you're going to be collecting the crew in. So they want to give off the illusion that ND5 develops are liking to you, and that you eventually consider ND5 family. But for 80% of this game, ND5 is on the comms just telling you what to do. The only time you ever see him is when you're on the ship, and the only optional quest that you can do where he is present is the one mission that they showed off in the marketing. ND5 isn't your wingman, and that alone makes for a horrible experience, because why the fuck did Ubisoft waste the hardest looking motherfucker on a glorified complaining machine? Before doing the heist, you'll be put on a mission to save ND5 when he is slowly dying from an injury, and this mission is the only instance where ND5 gets some character development. Kay is insistent that she wants to save him, despite him telling her that it is illogical and that there is such a high risk because he just doesn't think that he's worth it. And it's a really nice mission for two characters that love each other as family. But considering they aren't family and that they have barely interacted outside of him telling her what to do, this all just feels kind of silly. I love ND5. His character arc revolves around the strange choices that Kay makes throughout the game, but that does not make for a relationship that a player can root for. If you've played the game like me, you might think these characters have a relationship, but you're forgetting the part where Kay is basically a hostage to this droid who is programmed to kill her if she doesn't do what Jalen tells her. And it's gonna turn out even worse when you proceed to the final act of the game. There is so much I'm leaving out because half of this shit just isn't worth talking about, because this game doesn't put in the effort to develop anything. Kay's mum shows up for the final few hours of the game, and I felt nothing because the game only shows Kay's mum twice before the end of the game, both in flashbacks. The game is written for you to hate Kay's mum, but they don't work hard enough to develop Kay to the point where it would warrant any kind of a reaction once she sees her mum again. I've hardly spoken about Slero because Slero only shows up for like 3 to 4 times in the entire game, and only one of those instances is an interaction with us. We see him in the opening, he meets Kay, he gets told off by Darth Vader because you can't have a Star Wars game without Darth Vader, guys, and you get to see him for like 3 minutes at the end of the game when he doesn't even know that you're in the room because you're dressed up like a stormtrooper. You get to watch an interaction between Slero and Jalen because, plot twist, Jalen and Slero are brothers. Like, no fucking shit, game. The game opens with Slero saying he has a brother, and Jalen is the only other white dude in this game. So no shit, they're brothers. The only thing tricking you into maybe not seeing this coming is that Jalen is meant to be Slero Sr. Yes, this guy is meant to be older than this guy. Nothing in this game is developed properly, and it's why I'm not talking about this story very seriously. Jalen and Slero's twist is underdeveloped. The love-hate relationship between Kay and her mother is underdeveloped because you only get 2 flashbacks of Kay and her mum together. Crewmates are underdeveloped because their stories never allow them to be present for them. ND5 and Kay's relationship is underdeveloped because these characters barely interact outside of missions briefings. Kay and ND5's development starts at the end of the game, and it's a joke. The last mission of the game has Jalen sicking ND5 on you after you spend hours trying to find a way to free him of his restraining bolt. Kay develops a strong love for ND5, not because these characters have a relationship, but because he's the only thing that's consistently been around for her through thick and thin, in a life where every other person has abandoned her. Which is really, and I'm being serious here, beautiful. It's nice. That's a good story to tell. But it means nothing when ND5 was only doing that because he had his restraining bolt on. Their relationship is built on a lie, both in-game and in the marketing. ND5 warning Kay that he is going to kill her despite not wanting to is the coldest shit that has ever come out of Star Wars, and I love it.
You know I can't fight Jalen's orders. Now your death will be on my conscience. I can't stop until I find you. You deserve to survive. That will not happen if you keep doing what you are doing. You're making too much noise, Kay. I hear you, Kay. You can't stop me! Run faster, Kay. I told you to run. I didn't want this, Kay. I told you to run.
But that doesn't make up for two characters just randomly deciding they have a relationship where they did not develop that relationship on screen. If ND5 was with Kay throughout missions instead of Nyx, things would be completely different. Him being present for the highs and lows of Kay's journey would make for a very strong team dynamic, but ND5 isn't there throughout Kay's adventure. He just sits there on the ship doing nothing until the plot says he's allowed to be useful this one time, and during that one time, he shits his pants and needs you to save him. What a waste of a character. The plot twist that you weren't stealing money doesn't matter, because like we discussed, it's super easy to deduce from the blatant lie Jalen tells you at the start of the game. So like, what's left here? The game ends where the game should have started. Kay and ND5 flying off into space, getting ready for their next job together. Just thinking about that game is fascinating, but we're never gonna get it. Star Wars Outlaws is by far the worst game I've ever had the disprivilege of talking about on this channel. I've played some seriously bad games on this channel, but I've always walked away feeling fulfilled, or at least like I got my money's worth. Star Wars Outlaws isn't bad, it's so much worse than that. It's content slop to be consumed for so long that it fills in the gaps where Ubisoft doesn't have a game releasing, so that you never unsubscribe from their subscription service. Star Wars Outlaws isn't just bad, it's forgettable. And after this video ends, I will never think about it again.
You remember her name. And yet, you will forget your own. Let's try something new. Initiate the White Void Protocol. It's time we see who he really is.
A big thank you to all my patrons and members, but an even bigger thank you to Papa Sun, The Lonely Shepard, Astral Phoenix, Fancy Feet with 3s instead of E's, Opossum Supremacy, The Superstorm 49, and Coffee.pot.cat. I genuinely could not have made this video without your support, and I appreciate it. I will see you guys in the next video.